Start. Good afternoon, everyone. So today's presentation is based on Orlando, a biography by Virginia Woolf. So let's start this presentation. In this slide, I add points to ponder, which I'm going to discuss in this presentation. About author, key facts about novel, character list, themes, symbol, and quotes from the original text. After that, first slide is based on author Virginia Woolf. She is Virginia Woolf. Born, and her full name is Adeline Virginia Stephen, and she was born in 1882 and died in 1941 at the age of 59. Her notable works are Orlando, Mrs. Dalloway, To the Lighthouse, etc. You can read here. She participated in many movements like modernism, and she is a very famous name in stream of consciousness also. Notable family member, her husband's name is Leonard Woolf. Her father's name is Sir Leslie Stephens, and her sister's name is Vanessa Bell. She is a painter. Subject of study is literature, as we all know that. After that, this slide is based on a key fact about novel. Full title of this novel is Orlando, a biography. Author Virginia Woolf. Type of work is novel. Genre fictional biography. Language is English. Time and place written. This work is written during 1927 to 1928 between To the Lighthouse and The Well, when she writes these two novels. Between them timeline, she writes this Orlando. Date of first publication October 11, 1928, and this is also a last line of this novel. Where this Orlando is, or we can say a narrator is speaking these things. October 11, 1928. Publisher of this novel is Hogarth Press. Narrator, third person omniscient narrator, and this narration is not sure, and also it is unreliable biographer. This narrator is protagonist, or we can say a titular figure is Orlando. This novel has a 6th chapter. Setting of this novel is during 1588 to 1928. So this is a very long period of time, and the time place where this novel is set is mostly in England, and after that some tourism to the Constantinople and the hills of Turkey. So these are some settings of this novel. So this next slide is based on about the novel. Orlando, a biography is a novel published in 1928 by the English author Virginia Woolf. It tells the story of Orlando, who is the protagonist, and Orlando is a member of the English nobility who is born as a male in 16th century. This is a very important thing to note that he born as a male in 16th century England. Around the age of 30, Orlando mysteriously changed into a woman. When he was 13, then he changed into woman and lived for centuries without visibly again. So this Orlando is born as a man in 16th century, and when it comes to an end of 20th century, or we can say 19th century, he became a woman. Or this novel is the first transgender novel in the 20th century, and author Janetta Witterson, this is the author's name, she called Orlando the first trans novel in the English. The title character is based on a wolf lover or a good friend, Vita Sequel West. She is journalist, poet, and author. This Vita Sequel. Sequel West was a successful novelist, poet, and author or journalist, and she published more than dozen collection of poetry or 13 novels during her lifespan. Vita shares many biographical details with Orlando. Virginia Woolf wrote this novel, or we can say she dedicated this novel to her lover or a good friend, Vita Sequel. And Vita Sequel shares many biographical elements of her own with this Orlando, a titular character. And okay, so let's move further. So this novel is, as I mentioned, that Vita Sequel was also a part of this novel. So the novel has been adapted for films and theatre or opera also. This novel is very famous during the 20th century. So many writers or so many movie publisher, or we can say a movie director, choose this film to show the this spectators that this novel is very famous and very good to understand this transgenderity or LGBTQ thing. And after that, to describe the gender of characters, this guide uses the gender to character is identified with the during that moment. When talking more broadly, the guide uses they or them, this narrator was also using or he or his or she or him. He not use this kind of terms. He used this they or them. So gender is not identified in this novel. Or for the undered biographer, the term them is used. As I mentioned that the novel tells the story of Orlando from the age of 16 in 16th century England until the age of 36 in 1928. So this is the story between 16-year-old and when he or she became the 36-year-old. The story is this timeline is this. So he started lives for 400 years. The novel is narrated by an unnamed biographer who expresses their opinions about the story's events despite their claims to the only report fact. This story is also says that this narrator is unreliable biographer. So it is not clearly that this is a fictional work. So we can say biography is not based on fiction. Biography is a non-fiction thing. So this is also a biographical work, or we can say that. So this novel, in the 17th century, King Charles II appointed Orlando to be an ambassador in Constantinople. So in 17th century, I think when he was 30-year-old, then this King Charles II, he appointed Orlando as a ambassador in Constantinople. When Orlando finally awakes, when he awakes next day, he realized that she is now a woman. So he became she after this ambassador in Constantinople. Although the changes is mysterious, Orlando has little difficulty to accepting it. Obviously, difficulty should be there when one became when man became a woman. Then definitely this difficulties were there to accepting the own self. Orlando finally reaches the 1920s, the decade in which Woolf wrote and published Orlando. Orlando finally publishes the oak tree in this novel. Orlando is also a publisher, or we can say a writer, or he published many novels and poems in this novel. So as we know that Vita Sackville is also a author or a publisher, so this is also a biographical, we can say, point that we note that this Orlando is also author and Vita is also author. So this final scene, Shell flees above Orlando's home in an aeroplane before she leaping out of the plane to join her. So this is the ending scene of the novel when she realizes that he became she, and she flies away from this Constantinople, and then she going to the Orlando's house, or her own house, we can say that. As he does this, a wild bird firing up, the clock strikes midnight and it is the present. So now the story begins with past, and now in the end the story comes into present. So now I am going to discuss some characters to understand this novel in a better way. So first thing first, the character, our protagonist is Orlando, an aristocratic male turned female, lives for centuries, or we can say 400 years. Sasha, a Russian princess, questionable loyalty. She is a lover of Orlando, male Orlando. Nell, prostitute, shows Orlando the secret of womanhood, and she is a friend of female Orlando. You should know that who is the female Orlando's friend and who is male Orlando's friend or lover. Patron, Nick Green, a crotchet poet, lives for centuries. He is also a poet, or we can say a critic of that century where Orlando lives. Shell, female Orlando's soulmate, formerly a woman. Or this character Shell is based on Virginia Woolf's character also, and between Shell and Orlando, relationship between them like lover, or we can say a lesbian relationship with this Orlando, female Orlando. This Archduke Harry disguised self as an archduchess wants to win male Orlando's favor. So this character is not that much important, but to be noted that this character Archduke Harry, he wants to seduce male, or he wants to have a favor from this male Orlando. So these are some characters in this novel. So this video is very nice. So I want to show this video. So let's start with this. I hope it started.
What if William Shakespeare had a sister who matched his imagination, his wit, and his way with words? Would she have gone to school and spent a favor life? In her essay, A Room of One's Own, Virginia Woolf argues that this would have been impossible. She can cast a fictional sister who's stuck at home, snatching time to scribble a few pages before she finds herself betrothed and runs away. While her writer finds fame and fortune, she remains abandoned and anonymous. In this thought experiment, Woolf demonstrates the tragedy of genius restricted and looks back through time for hints at his hidden history. She wrote, when one reads of the witch being dust, of a woman possessed by devils, of a wise woman selling hers, or even a very remarkable man who had a mother then I think we're on the track of a lost novel, of depressed hope, of some new and glorious Jane Austen. A really much woman who says the world denies the first voice of art through exclusion and inequality. How best can we understand the internal experience of alienation? In both her essays and fiction, Virginia Woolf shapes the purpose of reality, and it is including the character's traumatic past, leaving the inner world of non-socialists. As a young woman, she purchased a house in the Bloomsbury area of London, Mississippi. This brought her into contact with a circle of creatives, including Ian Forster, Clive Bell, Roger Fry, and Mary Woolf. These friends became known as the Bloomsbury Group, and Virginia and Leonard married in 1912. The members of this group were some.
So, this Bloomsbury group is very important to understand Virginia Woolf, or we can say the Bloomsbury area has some famous artists or authors in this Bloomsbury group. They are part of this Bloomsbury group, or Vita Sackville and Virginia. They both are part of this Bloomsbury group.
Feminist figures in modern, a cultural movement that sought to push the boundaries of how reality is represented. Key features of modern writing include the use of stream of consciousness, interior monologue, distortions in time, and multiple and shifting perspectives. These appear in the work of Ezra Pound, Gertrude Stein, James Joyce, and Woolf herself. When reading through the Ulysses, Woolf began writing Mrs. Dalloway. Like Ulysses, the text takes place over the course of a single day and over the evening. Character inhabits multiple single characters in the ways six become one. But in a gender-bending Orlando, a single character inhabits multiple identities. The protagonist is a poet who switches between genders and lives for 300 years. With its fluid language and approach to identity, Orlando is considered a key text in gender studies. The mind can only fly so far from the body before it returns to the constraints of life. Like many of her characters, Woolf's life ended in tragedy when she found herself at age 59. Yet she expressed hope beyond suffering. Through these thoughts, Woolf's characters are shown as human.
So this video is very important to understand Virginia Woolf in a depth. Why she, when she is 59, she committed a suicide. Mysterious suicide note is also found from her, and as in this video you show the Bloomsbury group and also Orlando. Orlando is very famous novel during the age of 20th century, as also mentioned in this video. So let's start now with the theme of the Orlando. So theme of the Orlando is, first theme is writing and literature, second is subjectivity, truth and biography, third is gender and society, fourth is identity and transformation. So I choose to represent this fourth theme as this Cinderella transformed from simple Cinderella into a princess. So this is the fourth theme. This is the gender equality, or we can say gender and society, third thing. And this both I want to represent with this biography or literature with the books. So let's start with the first theme. Modernists like Virginia Woolf believe that traditional forms of writing, be it poetry, prose, and even biography, were a poor fit for their new and changing world. Woolf's Orlando is one of such attempts to critique an inequality, literary traditions, and produced more innovative work. The subject Orlando is a poet and a biographer, repeatedly interrupts the novels to comment on their own writing. So in this novel you found that this Orlando is also a poet and writer, and also a critic of his own work. Throughout Orlando's unbelievable life, in which he changes gender after a curiously long sleep and lives over 400 years, Orlando encounters several past literary giants, including William Shakespeare and Jonathan Swift. So in this novel, you found so many literary writers like Dryden, Pope, Alexander Pope, Ben Jonson, William Shakespeare, and also very famous Jonathan Swift. You found this kind of literary writers and their works. Um, After that, portraying him in a flattering way, she presents him as an overweight man in a dirty shirt. So, this statement Virginia Woolf gave for William Shakespeare. Woolf does not deny Shakespeare's literary greatness. Indeed, she reflects several of his plays throughout Orlando. As I mentioned that this this novel has so many plays of William Shakespeare in this. Mention of this plays are also there. She does implies that in every other ways he is much like everyone else. So, in a way, Virginia Woolf criticized William Shakespeare, and also one of her work, Room for Once. In that work, she imagined that William Shakespeare has a sister. So that way, she criticized this William Shakespeare also. After Orlando changes gender and became a woman, she asked Alexander Pope, a famous poet from the early 18th century, to go home with her. So this character Orlando is present in every situation, like in 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, and also in 20th century. So these centuries are very important to note in this novel, and also this centuries has many great writers in it. So early 18th century has Alexander Pope as a satirist, and she mentioned in this novel that she asked Alexander Pope to drop her home, and then she, or we can say Orlando, when she turns into a woman, after that she asked Pope to drop her to home. So when she saw that Pope has this kind of attire and figure of Pope, she saw, and then she judged Alexander Pope by his own attire or his own language, and after there are so many mention in the Orlando, so you can read Orlando to understand in depth. In this novel, there are so many literary figures from that age, and so many critics are also mentioned in this novel, like Pope from 18th century, Shakespeare from 16th century, Dryden from 17th century, and Ben Jonson, etc. Writing and literature is very important theme of this novel. After the subjectivity, truth, and biography, in Orlando, Virginia Woolf implies that biographies of the past have failed to effectively capture a subject because they rely too heavily on what is perceived as a subject. Virginia Woolf wants to differ herself from other biographer or other writer of their century. So she writes this Orlando, and in this she choose the genre of fiction and also unreliable biographer or narrator. So this is very important to note that this novel is also anti-biographer novel. The book subject, Orlando is a fictional character based upon Woolf's real life friend. As I mentioned, Vita is her friend or lover. So Woolf suggests that collecting and recording facts such as is done in the writing of biographies is difficult because to do so really on another person's memories. So these biographies are based on another person's memories and all kind of facts and recordings of that person. But in this novel, she doesn't use this kind of facts and we can say biographer kind of what we say is that biographer kind of terms. She neglect that one biographer could be like this also, who travels through the 16th century to the 20th century, and gender changes also there. The aim of biography to capture the life and essence of a person is nearly impossible. Woolf implies at last in the ways biographies have traditionally been writing. Thus, William Shakespeare, if offers a completely new type of Virginia Woolf offers a completely new type of biography, one that relies on a subjectivity rather than fact. So, as I mentioned earlier, that also this novel is based on a subjectivity, not based on a fact. Third, gender and society. In one of the more precise movement of Virginia Woolf's Orlando walks after an inacceptability comma or acceptable comma, or we can say when he wakes up, he became a woman. When like sleep of 7 days to find himself transformed into a woman. Orlando is a fictional representation of Woolf's own friend. This both are member of Bloomsbury Group, and this group is elite class author and writers group. So gender and society is very important theme of this novel. Like the gender is male and female gender are also there in this novel, and society, Bloomsbury Group is also mentioned that this elite class people or elite class artists are there in Bloomsbury Group. So society is like this, and one of the ways in which gender is constructed in Orlando is through clothing. So clothing is very important symbol in this novel. Whether then Orlando was most man or woman, the narrator writes, it is difficult to say and cannot be decided that whether this Orlando is a male or a female. We cannot decide that this Orlando is a male or female. After that, identity and transformation. Orlando, the protagonist and title character of Virginia Woolf's Orlando, undergoes profound personal and physical changes in the novel, and he lives a world that likewise drastically transforms. When the narrator first introduces Orlando, he is a young boy of 16 in Elizabeth's first court, sometimes around the mid-1670s. By the end of the novel, however, Orlando is a 36-year-old woman who gets out of her car on the 12th stroke of midnight, Thursday, the 11th of October 1928. So this is a last line of this novel, like the 12th stroke of midnight, Thursday, the 11th of October 1928. Orlando's identity, who she is deep down, her sexuality, her respect for nature, and her dedication for poetry remains with her throughout the life. It also, while much of Orlando's life relies on the limitations and expectations of an ever-changing society, identity remains inequality, her own untouched and uninfluenced by external factors. This identity of her own or his own, based on she never changes because of external factors or society. So this transformation is part of Orlando's life. Like when he born as a male, after that he transformed male to woman. So this is very important theme of this novel. So let's start with the symbols. There are three major or main symbols used in novel: clothing, the oak tree, dog. So clothing, as we all know that in today's time also clothing is very important. Every person judge you from your clothing style or your appearance or outer appearance. When also there is this line is very famous, like don't judge a book by its cover, or it also says that don't judge a person by their attire or by their clothing. So clothing is very important symbol, or this signifies that a society judge the Orlando by her clothing or his clothing. Clothing symbolizes the artificiality of gender as a social construction in Virginia Woolf's Orlando, and it often serves to obscure one's true gender identity, which the novel suggests naturally that between both male and female. Orlando's gender identity, in this novel also, that Orlando identify by his or her outfit, when he born that he was male, and that time he used to wear trouser and t-shirt and shirt, and after when he transformed into a female, then he used, or we can say she used to wear dresses and gowns and all kind of things, and because of their clothing no one can define that this is a male character and this is a female character, or we cannot define or we cannot identify that what he or she was in past. So this is also important to say that clothing is very important symbol in today's time and also in Orlando. The novel suggests it is Orlando's clothes, not Orlando's body, that dictates Orlando's gender. Clothes are but a symbol of something hidden deep beneath, the narrator argues. In this novel, the narrator argues that no one should judge by their clothing, or if we see Orlando, we can also not identify that this is a male Orlando or a female Orlando. The oak tree. The second symbol is the oak tree. The oak tree is poetry written by Orlando, and it is also a very signifying way of portraying Virginia Woolf, her own poetries and works. So here you can see a picture of oak tree. This is a oak tree. The oak tree is a poem that Orlando writes for nearly 300 in this novel. In this novel, he used to write poetry and novels, and represent Orlando's identity as a poet, and his Orlando is identified as poet in this novel. The book's So this oak tree, when Orlando published this, when he write this oak tree, he was younger. He was in his younger age, and in this oak tree, he used to write about his boyish dreams, and when he was boy, then what kind of feelings he has, and this kind of things he used to write in this oak tree. And after that, when he published this oak tree, he became a woman. When he became the woman, then he published the oak tree. So this is very difficult to understand the feelings of a woman who writes about a male or a boyish dream in his own poetry. So Nicholas Green, he was a critic of that time, gives one of Orlando's original play a poor review. Orlando burns all his works, but to retrain the oak tree, claiming it is a very short. So when this Nicholas Green, he criticized Orlando's play or Orlando's novel, then Orlando burns all his works. And after that, when he realized that I should write, or I should not be sad and not burn this work, so he started writing the oak tree, and it is very short poem. So Orlando too changes with her poem, but through all these changes, Orlando remains fundamentally the same. She remains a poet, and the constant presence of the oak tree throughout the book, evidence of this by placing the poem at the base of the oak tree. At the end of a novel, Orlando returns her work to nature, her ultimate inspiration. So this tree signifies the nature of Orlando. So when she used to write, or when she or he writes about this poetry or novel, he used to close to a nature. So in the end of this novel, he or she is close to a nature. Dogs. Last but not the least, the symbol of this novel is dog. Woolf mentioned dogs repeatedly throughout Orlando, and they are symbolically of Orlando's deep connection to nature within the novel. So nature are used in different two way. Nature as this, and nature as a dog, or as a animal who are very we can say very wafadar of. Dogs are very polite. Not, we can say they are not polite, but they are very loyal to her master or his master. So the dogs are when Vita Sackville's when he break up with Virginia Woolf, after that she write this Orlando, and she dedicated this Orlando character to Vita Sackville. So these dogs are very signifying with the character of Vita and character of Orlando. Orlando's connection to dogs is so strong that is never leaves his side during the weeks long. This Orlando has one dog, and when she or he fall into sleep, and that time this dog is very loyal to him, and he stays by his side. And after that, when she wake up as a woman, at that time he is also this dog is half famished with hunger, and this dog is very loyal to Orlando, so she or he is by his side. So these dogs are very loyal, as we know, and in this novel I also signify that dog is loyal to Orlando. In the end of this novel, she takes her dog with her. These are some symbols in the novel. So last slide are based on quotation from the original text. So these are some famous quotes. As long as she thinks of a man, nobody objects to a woman thinking. This quotes by Virginia Woolf. A woman knows very well that though a wit sends her his poem, praises her judgment, solicited her criticism, and drinks her tea, this by no means signifies that he respects her opinion, admires her understanding, or will refuse. Though the reprise is denied him to run through the body with his pen. Orlando naturally loved solitary places, vast views, and to feel himself for ever and ever and ever alone. So this quote is connected with nature, or oak tree is also a natural thing or symbol in the novel. So these are some quotes. Thank you so much, and thank you so much to bear me, and thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.